everybody, it's TheGameconomist, and today we're working on the Moonlight Greatsword. This is the second time I've worked on this weapon. The first time I worked on it, I was like, oh yeah, bring your intelligence up to 60 and use it as a mage. And now that I'm much better at the game, I can tell you that that is a terrible idea. What you want to do is you want to bring your intelligence up to 40, you want to have minimum strength. You can bring your strength up to 18, I guess, if you want access to the Arbalist as well as the Black Knight Shield. But yeah, you know, 16 strength, 40 intelligence is going to get you pretty much all the damage out of this weapon. And then you want to pour the rest of your points into, you know, vigor, vitality, endurance. In my case, I brought an extra attunement slot because I figured I could bring, I don't know, one of the sorceries. As it turns out, that wasn't too helpful. I would say you could bring at least Homing Soul Mass. That wasn't too bad. A lot of people don't realize that you don't have the mage rings on, so they're like, oh shit, I don't want to be, I don't want to take any damage from that, right? So it wasn't that bad. It allowed me to kind of play around a bit. For duels, I thought this weapon did pretty good. So there's two things that's really nice about the Moonlight Greatsword. The first one is it doesn't take a lot of points to get most of the damage out of it. 1640, that's not much, guys. So you can do, you know, kind of like tankier builds. You can put your points elsewhere. That's nice. It's an efficient build. The other nice thing is the weapon art, actually. It's not the projectile R2. That's actually poo-poo. You know, my recommendation for the R2 is to basically ignore it. What's really strong about the weapon is the weapon art. It's a thrust attack. You know, I think it's a little slower than a typical R2, but it's also faster than a fully charged R2, okay? That's important, because it deals the damage of a fully charged R2, like 600 damage with that weapon art, and the hyper armor on it. Oh, you know, I was just going right into ultras if I wanted to with that, with the hyper armor on the weapon. I didn't get interrupted by anything, and I didn't test everything. You know, you kind of gotta, to get a really good sense of how much hyper armor something has, you kind of have to go around testing. I'm sure somebody on the internet's already tested it, but just in the fights that I had, none of the meta weapons are going to interrupt it, is my point. Oh, and unless they hit it very early on. At the very beginning of the windup, it doesn't have hyper armor, so just keep that in mind. You'll have a moment where you have no hyper armor. It's really a moment later where the hyper armor kicks in. So yeah, you'll play this just like a regular greatsword. You've got your mage spells with you. You can bring like an S-stock with you in order to finish opponents off if you're, you know, if they're getting really, they're getting really passive near the end. Players tend to do that. You know, and yeah, no problems at all. As a greatsword, of course, it's never going to be quite as good as the really fast weapons like the Profaned Flame sword, for example. It's never going to, you know, it's never going to out-tier that weapon because that weapon's a lot more reactive. But yeah, overall, as a greatsword, I thought it did very well, and I'm surprised. You know, I actually forgot about this weapon I did, which is one of the reasons why I'm covering it. I covered the Dark Claymore the other day, and I thought Dark Claymore was terrific. If you haven't used it, go use it. But yeah, I was analyzing the greatswords back then, and I realized I had forgotten the Moonlight Greatsword. And this is definitely one of the better greatswords. Like I was saying, the build is efficient, and that weapon art is a good weapon art for a greatsword. And just the fact that you can do something like... Your opponent doesn't know that Homing Soul Mass is really weak on your build. They have no idea if you're wearing the rings. In fact, if you wanted, you could probably put the rings on. You know, mid-match, you could put the rings on. For invasions, this weapon did pretty well there too. You know, like I was saying earlier, the weapon art can actually be used to trade with ultras, and then the damage is just high enough that you can cancel an Estus drink if you're close to your opponent. So yeah, overall, this is definitely mid-tier to upper mid-tier for invasions. It really suffers on being able to finish opponents off, I want to say. And yeah, so you're not able to really chase it all. The running attack on greatswords has always been atrocious. So, you know, it's just going to lose a little bit of points for not being able to chase very well. Finally, in PvE, you're not going to have any troubles with this weapon. You can actually use the R2 projectile because the AI aren't smart enough to jump away from it, you know what I mean? Right? You can use the weapon art when you want a poise option, and then if you're having trouble with opponents like resisting magic damage, some of you guys probably don't know this, but there's a pyromancy called Profaned Flame, and that scales on intelligence, so just bring that with you if you know you're going to have to fight, I don't know, like a boss or a group of enemies that are resistant to magic. You could also bring a dark infused weapon. That'll scale on intelligence and faith, which means you're going to get some of that intelligence scaling is going to bring the AR of that weapon up. So that's kind of how you deal with that. But yeah, you know, if you have to fight a boss who's resistant to magic, this isn't going to be by any means your best option, because so much of the damage on this weapon is magic damage, okay? Or crystal, I should call it. Alright, so that's everything I have to say about the weapon. I hope you guys enjoy the invasions, and stick around to the end of the video for the tier ratings. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Hello!
Oh dear, we are in trouble.
This wench.
Tis but a scratch.
That is not correct.
Double kill! Wait, SpongeBob! We're not cavemen! We have technology! I'm sorry.
You tried to match my style and failed.
You can see the texture, very creamy.
Ashen One, what is wrong?
It's a trapper's wife.
Help me! Nope! I'm going to have myself a little nap. The only thing to do, really, after a nice toast.